Hello and welcome everyone to this morning's webinar, which is all about succeeding at community engagement with GIS. So before we begin today, just a few housekeeping notes. So we will be sending you the recording from today, so please don't worry about taking too many notes. During the webinar, we really encourage you to ask as many questions as you like, and you can submit these in the Q&A panel, which you should see at the top of your screens. At the end of the session, we'll answer as many of those questions as we can, and any that we don't have time for today, we'll follow up with you afterwards. Finally, at the end of the webinar, there'll be an exit survey for you to submit your feedback. We're always really interested to hear what you think so that we can make our webinars as informative and as useful as we possibly can. So please do fill out the survey when prompted at the end of the session. You're in listen-only mode today, which means we can't hear you. But as I said, please make use of the Q&A panel if you have any questions. Our runtime today is about 30 to 35 minutes, which means we should be wrapping up by about 11:35. So for those of you who I haven't met before, so my name is George and I'm a business development manager at CADcorp. What this means is that I work with our housing customers to help them maximise their investment in GIS by advising them on their GIS setup and telling them about the latest best practices in housing in GIS. I'm pleased to be joined by my colleague and co-presenter Simon. So Simon is our pre-sales team leader. If you've been to any kind of CADcorp webinar or demo in the past, chances are it's been Simon who's been doing the demo for you. And we'll be hearing from Simon later on today, where he'll be showing us some examples of how you can use GIS to engage with your residents. So looking at our delegate list today, I think most of you are already quite familiar with us, either because you're an existing CADcorp customer or because you've been to one of our webinars before. So I'm not going to spend too much time today telling you all about us. However, I will just say, for those of you who don't know us, so we're a UK-based GIS software development company that includes desktop-based and web-based mapping. Recently, we've also become part of NEC Software Solutions through an acquisition, which is really exciting news for everyone involved with CADcorp. We're really looking forward to seeing the benefits that this investment will bring in the near future, which should mean even more functionality and capabilities in our software going forward. I think now that kind of all makes now a great time to be a CADcorp customer. As you can see on the screen, land and property or housing is one of our main markets. But we also work with customers from the emergency services, the environment and local government. I think this kind of really helps because it gives us a really well-rounded understanding of GIS and how it can be used. Housing is still one of our main markets though. As you can see, we're currently working with around 30 different housing associations. Over the years, we've built up a lot of knowledge and experience working with all these different organisations, which has given us a real specialism when it comes to the social housing sector and GIS. So on to our agenda today. So some of you will be aware, but others maybe not, but a couple of weeks ago, we ran an in-person housing conference all about GIS and how it can be used effectively. So we had a lot of people there, which was great, but as always, some people weren't able to make it on the day. So to start things off this morning, I'm going to give you a short summary of the day and what we've discussed, just to bring you all up to speed. From there, we'll move on to our main topic, which is about GIS and web mapping, and how web mapping can help you engage your residents. We'll then have a live demo from Simon, where he'll show you some examples of how this would work in practice to give you some ideas about what's achievable and what you can do. We'll then come back to me for any questions you might have had along the way. So do keep those questions coming in the Q&A panel. So we'll move on to the first part of our agenda, which is our housing conference, which took place last month. So it was a great day with lots of emphasis on learning and collaborating and sharing ideas. I think the highlight for a lot of the attendees were the presentations by 3 of our current customers. So first of all, we had Vico Homes, who spoke really well about GIS and how it's now central to how they fairly and transparently calculate service charges for their residents. They do this by grouping their properties into logical estates, calculating the total service charge for the estate and dividing that cost between the properties in that estate. Orbit then shared some of the work they've been doing which uses GIS to identify land opportunities. For them, this was a shift away from kind of cumbersome spreadsheets towards a new, intuitive and self-serving system that is ingrained in CAD Corpus's web map. We were then joined by L&Q, who shared how they've been using GIS to inform and make more efficient their cyclical decorations program. This involved creating hotspot maps, CAD Corpus's desktop, and adding spatial buffers to calculate the cost of extending the work from the area of greatest need. We were then joined by our partners, the Ordnance Survey, who spoke about their new product, OSNG Buildings, and some of the ways that it can be used within the housing sector. During the day, we also had some CAD Corp presentation demos. The first of these was a continuation of a webinar we ran in May and was all about using GIS for day-to-day operations in housing. This session was really about kind of showcasing those quick wins that any housing association can use to get the return on investment they need from GIS. Some examples we looked at was using GIS to identify block gutters and also using our software to create conveyance plans. Finally, we also looked at sustainability and how GIS can be used to help meet EPC targets and intelligently identify the best locations for solar panels. We also had the pleasure of being joined by our new colleagues at NEC Software Solutions, who introduced CAD Corp's customers to their family of products and services that they can offer to housing associations. As I said, the conference was a really great day with sort of lots of networking opportunities and lots of sharing ideas. We can't really kind of replicate that side of the conference online, but if any of the sessions I've spoken about sound interesting, then please let me know, even the exit survey or the Q&A panel, and we can put some time in together to go through some of the content in more detail. So we're going to start moving on to our main topic, which is all about community engagement. And to do that, we're just going to start with a quick poll just to kind of gauge where you all are with community engagement and GIS at the moment. So you should see the poll on your screen now. And the first question is, to what extent is your organisation using GIS to engage with your residents at the moment? So 4 options. So it might be not at all. It might be a little. So you might publish some maps and spatial data to your residents, but not interactively. You might be doing it a lot. So you might have lots of different public-facing interactive web maps, or you might just not know. So yeah, I'll just give you a few minutes just to put your answers in. Excellent. So I can see the results. I'm not sure they're on your screen or not, but essentially what this is showing is that just under half of you are kind of using resident engagement a little bit, with about 1/3 of you not using it at all. That's really good. So the aim of today really is to kind of give you ideas of how you could use it more. It's really good that kind of some of you have already started using it. So hopefully we can give you some more ideas on what you can do. We'll then come to our second question. So for those of you who may be using resident engagement less, so what's stopping your organisation from using GIS more when it comes to resident engagement? So it might be that you don't have a GIS system in place that you can use. It might be that you have the system, you haven't got the in-house skills or personnel to set up GIS resident engagement, or it might just be that it's never occurred to you that GIS could be used for this kind of thing. There might also be another reason which is stopping you. So if that's the case, you can specify something else, and please let us know what that something else is in the Q&A. Yeah, so I can see from results that for most of you, it's because something else. So we'll kind of have a look in the Q&A panel later to see what that something else is. For some of you, though, it's just that it's never occurred to you that GIS could be used for this kind of thing. So again, that's kind of what today's all about, is about giving you all these different ideas you can take away to kind of think about how you can use it going forward. Okay, so we'll move on now onto kind of community engagement and why it's important. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the 2023 Social Housing Act, but for those of you who aren't, this was a piece of government legislation introduced a couple of years ago. And one of the real key things it introduced was the requirement for all social housing organisations to collect and publish data on 22 different tenant satisfaction measures. These measures cover a lot of different topics, For example, kind of how successful you are in achieving gas safety inspection targets, and to making sure you kind of achieve time repairs as well. But a big part of the tenant satisfaction measures centre around how your residents perceive you as an organisation and how satisfied they are. So 12 of the 22 measures are measured from tenant perception surveys. So this makes it really, really important that you're effectively communicating with your residents about all the great things you're doing. First set of results, which were published last year, show that 28% of residents were dissatisfied with their housing provider. So I'm sure lots of us are doing really good jobs, but it shows that there's clearly a lot of work still left to do. The good news is that GIS could be the answer. So your organisation might look like these people in the pictures, where directors and managers and budget holders are scratching their heads thinking, how on earth are we going to make our residents more engaged and know about all the good work we're doing? And after today, you can go back to them and be the person in the middle by telling them that GIS could be the solution. So first of all, GIS could help you pass your targets for gas safety checks and repairs, but more simply, it could just be used as a mechanism for sharing information and engaging your residents through interactive maps. As I said, 12 of the 22 measures are judged on tenant perception, which means doing all the good work is only half the battle at the moment. You also need to make sure your residents know about all the good work you're doing. If you're cartographically inclined like me, which I'm sure a lot of you are, then I'm sure you'll all agree that maps are a great way of doing this. So how can GIS do this? So Simon's going to show us some examples in a moment, but before we do that, I'm just going to highlight 4 key ways that it can help. So firstly, you can use GIS to view local information. So this could be by viewing amenities and housing offset information like contact details using our local knowledge extension to WebMap. CADCorp's this web map allows an unlimited number of users, which means every single one of your residents can log in and access this information. WebMap also allows different language options. So for a lot of your residents, they might all come from many different backgrounds with different first languages. And the good thing is that WebMap offers the flexibility to cater to all the different language requirements of your residents. So secondly, a resident portal could be a way for sharing operational data. So this could mean publishing your grounds maintenance data and service charge calculations so that residents can see that the charges they're paying have been fairly and transparently calculated. Thirdly, it could be about reporting incidents. So this could be kind of reporting incidents of fly tipping or antisocial behaviour, or it could be maintenance issues, and this could be done using our reporter add-in to WebMap. This could kind of extend as well to viewing completed repair jobs so that your residents can visually see that you're working as hard as you can to complete repairs as quickly as possible. And then finally, GIS could be used as a means for residents to search for their next property. So this was an idea given to us by one of our customers who wanted a method for residents to view for any vacant properties owned by the housing association that they could apply to move to if it better suited their requirements. This would work similarly to like a Rightmove or Airbnb search that you're probably all familiar with, and would use our CADCorp's web map for Power BI add-in, where a resident could filter a map and attribute columns like the number of bedrooms to find a property that fits their requirements. So that's it from me for now. Hopefully that's given you all a sense of why resident engagement is important, and it's got you to start thinking about some of the ways that GIS could be used. I'm now going to pass over to Simon, who's going to bring those ideas to life with our demo. So Simon, when you're ready, over to you.
Thank you, George. So I'll just share my screen and then we'll make a start on my demonstration. Okay, so I'm going to share some ideas on how you can use web mapping to succeed at community engagement. And this is very much following a similar trend undertaken by local authorities who have used web mapping to encourage more self-service through online digital channels. And you can use your resident portals to provide access to mapping in a variety of ways, and we'll explore some of those opportunities during this demonstration this morning. So here I've got basically a mock-up of a resident portal. Now I don't have access to sort of a real-world example, so I used an AI platform to generate a portal just for the purpose of this demonstration. And resident portals provide residents with 24/7 online access, so they can manage their tenancy, maybe report repairs, perhaps make a payment, and just generally access some of their account information. And it just means these platforms allow for self-service, which helps us streamline your communication with residents, and it also enhances the resident experience as well. And web mapping can support this objective by using mapping to share the location-based information in an intuitive and visual way. So I'm going to share some different examples of how that journey might look like, and you're in really good position with web mapping because you can look at all of these different options and choose the best approach for your organization. Now, the first opportunity is a real simple embedded map. So in the top right-hand corner here of my portal, I've used a map here to simply show the location of this resident's property. So it's a very simple example to start with, but this embedded map could be enhanced further with additional options. So you could have a layer switcher, so you can turn layers on and off in this embedded map, maybe have an option to interrogate the map as well with a mouse click. However, in my particular use case example, I would prefer to send residents to a separate mapping interface where they can do more with the map. So underneath my embedded map, I've got another section here, which I've sort of branded as a community map. And this is where I've integrated some links that launch a web mapping interface. Now, in reality, you probably just have one link, but I've gone overkill here so that I can kind of show you how you can tailor the resident's journey to the map. And the only difference between these three buttons is the URL address, and that URL address can be tailored to do a specific action when you launch the map. So let's have a look at these different options. So the first one here, I've said, yep, explore the map. So if I select this button, this map link launches the web map application into a browser. And I've greeted the resident, excuse me, with this front page option. Now, web mapping is very intuitive to use because it is designed for a non-technical user. However, it doesn't hurt to provide some pointers just on how to navigate the interface. So I've used this pop-up here to highlight some of the features and what they do. If I close that dialog, then the resident, a bit like Google Maps, is free to zoom and pan around the map. If they're map savvy, they can find their location of interest, or they can simply use the search in the top right-hand corner to perhaps search and find their address. So in this example this morning, I'm going to run a postcode search. So there's my criteria. I've got a list of postcode results. If I scroll down, I've also got a second search here, which is pulling back full addresses. Let's say the resident lives here. They select the result, and then we are where we want to be on the map. So that is one approach you can take with the map. Let me show you an alternative option. So let's close this map and return back to my resident portal. Now, the second option is a little cleverer. How about when a resident goes to the map, we position their map at their current location. So if I select this button here, it's using a slightly different URL address to position the map at the resident's current GPS location. So I'm in this area here today. And I bet most residents are accessing resident portals on mobiles and tablet devices. So web map can basically grab the GPS location of that device and then position the map accordingly. Or if you're on a computer or a laptop device, it will basically grab the location from the IP address, which is basically where we're basically connecting to the internet from. But we've used this method to kind of position a map at their current location straight off the bat, and they can immediately explore the map and view the information, which we'll take a look at very shortly. And then for the sort of third and final option, we could, just start the map at the resident's address. We know where they live. We've got the coordinates for that address. we can construct the URL to the map. So if I select my third button here, we are automatically positioning the map at their property location. So I've only spoken about how we get to the map so far. There are different pathways available, as I've just sort of demonstrated, and yet you can consider perhaps the best approach for your organisation. So we've got the resident to the map, but what can they do with it? And to be honest, it is completely up to you how you decide to use a map, and it all comes down to, I guess, the type of information you would find useful to provide your residents. Maybe look at some of those common questions that you may be asked by your residents through your other communication channels. It might be property related. It could be, okay, can you tell me about any properties that are available to rent in a particular area, or do you have any sort of shared ownership schemes I can apply for? You can have all this information displayed on the map, and the residents can toggle these different layers on and off. You can interrogate the pins in this example. So the blue pin is showing perhaps available properties to rent. I can click on that pin, up pops a little bit more information about it. You could even include links. It could be a link so the resident can be sent to an application page or another page where they can perhaps get more information or apply for that particular tenancy. Excuse me. How about showing accessibility to community services? It can be difficult to navigate multiple sources of information from various partner agencies and government organisations. But what if we kind of bring all that information together into a single map, helping our residents to perhaps know where the nearest bus stop might be to where they live, maybe show where they've got accessibility to nearby sort of medical services. This type of mapping could be helpful for residents who are perhaps evaluating or looking at new properties, and they want to see how accessible specific surfaces are to these properties. And of course, at this time of year, it could be a map showing warm spaces, so places where residents can go to keep warm, socialise with other people, or perhaps participate in community activities. You can just bring all of this information here into a single place. And then just for one last example, I'm just going to zoom into the map. We could also share operational type information as well. And there's certainly sort of aspirations amongst housing associations to share grounds maintenance data, for example, so your residents can see which grounds you're maintaining, and that provides a level of transparency, maybe on what their service charge is being used for, but also if there's a local issue with grounds maintenance, they wish to notify you about, the map will show them, yep, it's either your responsibility or somebody else's, and it just gives another opportunity for residents to self-serve. So yeah, a map with layers of information is a great way to get that information out there and in the hands of your residents to use and access. But we can supplement that approach by using local knowledge, and local knowledge can deliver sort of a tailored package of information to our residents, and that can use the resident's address or maybe their current location. Now in the menu here, they could activate local knowledge within this particular view, or you can use another decorated URL to kind of automate that process. So if I return back to my resident portal, underneath my community map section, I've also got one called local knowledge. So if I hit this button here, which says search the map, basically the URL address has told WebMap to open the map at the resident's address and then automatically run local knowledge for this location. And it's all done with a single click of a button. And local knowledge here can be used to deliver a variety of information about this locality, and it's all based on geographical searches like what area am I in, what's my nearest, and we can have all this information presented really quickly based on a location. So in this example here, I've got details about my housing officer. I've got find my nearest type searches here, so I can see where the nearest warm spaces are to this location, and then a variety of other community services and amenities further down in local knowledge. And it's just a really neat way of providing a package of information tailored to a resident's address. Now we're going to ramp up the kind of opportunities to engage with residents by also using the map to notify your organisation of any issues or improvements that can be requested for their local areas. So from kind of a reporting of an issue standpoint, you can ask residents to report maybe any concerns they have. Maybe it's cracked paving or poor lighting. Maybe they've had a slip, trip or fall. Maybe it's a poorly maintained grounds area, perhaps an area of grass is looking, really overgrown and it hasn't been cut in a while. And it just goes back to the opportunity of presenting sort of grounds maintenance on the map, so they can check that it's your responsibility before they perhaps raise a concern with you. And then I guess from a different perspective, you could also use this mechanism to maybe encourage residents to suggest improvements, maybe giving them the opportunity to engage with you, show them you're here to listen and you'll consider any suggestions that are made. And it's just a really easy way to do it. And ideas might include electric charging points for vehicle charging, maybe requesting easier step-free access around our estates, or perhaps suggesting an area of grounds like could perhaps be converted to a community growing space or garden. And you could probably think of many more examples, but how would they do that with the map? So from the menu here, they can access report it, where you can define a list of items to report by. As a resident, you would choose that item. So let's say I'm going to report an issue about some grass. Lots of different ways to identify the location of that issue on the map. I'm going to click on the map and place a pin just to say this is where my concern is. And then when you click next, you're then presented with a form to complete. This is configurable to your needs. Each form can be different for each report type because you may be asking different types of questions. So here I've just got to provide excuse me, a name, a telephone number. Perhaps I'll just make a phone number up there. Here I've got a drop-down list. Okay, what's the issue with the grass? Oh, it's overgrown. Do I want to upload an image? If on a mobile device, it will activate the camera so you can take a picture and include that as part of your report. Would I like to receive some updates? Of course I do. Click next, and then just as a final option here, just to provide a final contact in the form of an email address, and then I can submit that report. That report can be emailed to the organisation for resolution, and the resident has done their bit, and it was really easy to do so. So yeah, Report is a really flexible tool, enabling residents to be involved, using a simple interface to make reports and suggestions to your organisation. It's all underpinned by the value of location. Now, just to finish off my demonstration this morning, I'm just going to move away from this interface for a few moments, but web mapping also underpins this final example I'm going to share with you today, and that is Microsoft Power BI. And yeah, we're certainly seeing in the sector that more and more social landlords are using Power BI to create sort of engaging and interactive dashboards. In most sort of use cases, it's to share performance data, so satisfaction survey results, KPIs around complaints handling, repairs, maintenance, and there's probably many more that you can think of. And to kind of help with the delivery of that information, the inclusion of maps can provide that location insight. But interestingly, in conversation with one of our customers, they were kind of brainstorming the idea of using Power BI in a different way by kind of using a Power BI dashboard for residents to access, and they can use it to search for available properties to rent, because you've got a map here which can show their locations, and then you can use a really powerful filtering options to provide the search capability. So here's just a very simple mock-up of this idea, and I'm using the desktop client here of Power BI just to share this example today, but in reality you would publish this to a web browser for a resident to access, and in this particular example I've got 127 properties available based on my requirements. Perhaps I'm looking for a 2-bed. As a result of that, I've now got 40 listings, and the map updates to show us where those listings are based. Maybe I want a property with a garden. Perhaps I've got younger children and I want some accessibility to a secondary school. So we've applied some filters, we've got 2 listings, and we can now see the position of those properties here on the map. I can hover over the map, maybe get some more info. This one's quite basic, just showing an address and a reference for this particular property. And this particular map can also have layers enabled as well. So you can kind of turn layers on and off, and here I could perhaps turn a layer of secondary schools on just to see how accessible a secondary school is to each of these properties. But I thought it's just it's worth a quick share of this example today, just to show you also have this option of integrating maps with the powerful capabilities that Power BI has to offer. So that brings an end to my demonstration this morning, just showing you many examples of how you can use mapping to succeed at community engagement. There are different ways you can do it, and by all means, feel free to contact us and kind of lean on our expertise, and yeah, we can discuss the art of the possible. So yep, that's it from me this morning. Thank you for your time, and I will now hand you back to George. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Simon. That was great. So we've just got a couple of minutes now to wrap up before we come to your questions. And I'm going to do this by sharing this slide, which if you've been to any of our conferences or webinars in the last 6 months, you're probably quite familiar with. And essentially what this slide is showing is how housing associations are broadly following one of 2 different paths. So first of those is for those of you with designated GIS personnel who have had the training and have the time as well to manage your GIS in-house. And the good news is that provided with the right data and all the different software licenses, everything you've seen today you can achieve already. However, there were some others of you who maybe can't do it on their own because you may not have kind of the skills or the expertise to do it yourself. And this is where we can come in. So CAD Corp have got a team of experienced GIS professionals and who know the software inside out and complete tasks for you. In this scenario, this can involve setting up and maintaining one of the examples of resident engagement you've seen today. So the message is that whatever your level of experience, everything you've seen today is achievable. As I've made clear, tenant engagement is becoming increasingly important to make sure you're complying with government legislation, and GIS can play a pivotal role in ensuring you're ahead of the curve with the latest strategies and techniques to keep your residents on board and aware of all the good work you're doing. So so what do you do next? So you can go back to your managers and your directors, and you can tell them all about what you've seen and how you think GIS can be part of the solution to resident engagement. You've obviously seen a lot of different examples of how GIS can be used. So if you'd like any information on any of the examples and how you can achieve them, then please let me know. I'm free on any of the dates on the screen, so please get in touch and we can set up a Teams call discussing this further and come up with a strategy that will work best for you. So that brings an end to our content today. We've got some great questions in the Q&A and we've got a couple of minutes, so we'll just go through a couple of those now. So first of all, got a question from Emma. So Emma's asking, what do I need to do to embed a CAD Corp map in Power BI? So this is referring to the final example Simon showed us, which is looking at this kind of Rightmove style search for a property. So to do that, what you need is the CAD Corp Sys Web Map for Power BI add-in, which is a licensed extension. And once you've got that, provided you have Power BI already, which is the Microsoft product, you can embed those CAD Corp maps into your reports. And we've got a whole kind of wealth of online information in our online help for how you can do that. The real advantage of kind of using the CAD Corp mapping in Power BI as opposed to kind of some free mapping is that it means you can kind of bring in all of your really high quality ordnance survey data. So you've got that really high quality base map, and also means you get all those different data layers you've got in your GIS in your Power BI report. We've got time for just one more question, I think. So we'll go to a question from Toby. So Toby's saying, I've heard about a new product from the Ordnance Survey. I think it's called NGD. Can that help housing associations? So yes, Toby is spot on. The product you're talking about is Ordnance Survey NGD, which is National Geographic Database. And this is a new product, and most kind of useful for housing associations is their NGD buildings dataset, which has got kind of these really kind of rich attribution for all the buildings in the UK. So stuff like the number of floors, whether the solar panels, building material, that kind of thing. And yes, it can be really useful data for housing associations. We've done some webinars in the past where Simon's kind of demoed this data, so I can send you some links to those. And the good news is that CAD Corp are OS partners, which means we can license you to use that data. Okay, so I think we're just about out of time. So the last thing for you to do is our exit survey, which should pop up onto your screens in a moment. So please do complete the exit survey. It really, really does help us make our webinars as relevant and useful as possible. There's 3 pages to the exit survey, so please scroll through and answer all the questions. Thank you again for your time, and hopefully we'll be speaking to some of you soon. Perfect. Thank you.